Hey everybody, welcome to Act 3. I am so glad that you joined us today. My name is Kathy Holmes. I'm proud to be your host right here in beautiful Nanaimo. We're so glad that you tuned into CHLY today. Hey, listen, today we're going to talk about celebrations. And one woman who has got this down to a science is a fabulous celebrant by the name of Barbara Densmore. Barbara, welcome to the program. I'm so glad you're here. How are you?
I'm great. It's great to be here with you, Kathy.
It's going to be a great show. I know you have just so much to share with us about celebrations. But, you know, some people are really unclear as to really what a celebrant is. So let's start there. How did you get involved in this amazing work? And tell us all about it.
Well, I think what happened to me was I kind of fell into it by accident. But it started for me when my parents died, and I was looking for some way to celebrate them, to honor them in a way that worked for me. A lot of the funerals that I had seen were really dry, and they just didn't have a lot of life. I was a public speaker at the time, so I, was looking for something different, and really struggled. And then later, when I discovered this thing called celebrancy, which has been around since the mid-70s, it started in Australia. It was door number 3. There was church and state, and then celebrants were the extra option. When I discovered that, I thought, wow, I think this is what I'm looking for. So I went and I took the training, and yes, became a celebrant. And what a celebrant does is they design custom stuff. So, when you go to a ceremony that's in a church or someplace standard, there's whatever they offer you is whatever they offer you. What a celebrant does is takes who you are and what you want and makes that celebration really personal. So it can be just about anything.
I personally believe that the celebrancy part of it is a much more intimate kind of a celebration, particularly for weddings or for, because it's more than weddings. As you said, you can also do memorials, you can do all kinds of different celebrations. And I know that right now with COVID-19, even this broadcast is being done over Zoom. So to our audience, we apologize if our recording isn't clear or if there's, dings and bounces and bangs. Everyone is learning how to do a new normal at this point. Mm. And those that have been preparing for a celebration, like a graduation, like a wedding, they're having to change the way that they're doing things too. Barbara, what trends are you seeing happening right now?
Well, this is like, I think I'm going to go back. I'm going to use a model to explain how ceremonies work. And also it'll explain why we are where we are and where we are right now.
For sure.
There's this guy named Joseph Campbell, and he came up with something called the hero's journey. And if you've done, any sort of reading around mythic work or even personal growth, you may have come across this model. And the model is that every beginning begins with an ending.
Yes.
So you cannot go somewhere new until you leave someplace.
Yes.
So the departure is the first step.
So let's unpack that departure piece. Let me be clear. So you're saying that this model is the close before it's the beginning.
Close before the beginning. The close before the beginning.
What might that look like?
So when you look at a ceremony, and a lot of people don't know it, but when you look at a ceremony, for example, the ceremony begins with an ending. So your life as a single person ends in the ceremony.
Right.
And then your life as a married person begins at the end of the ceremony. And in between, there's the liminal time. And the liminal time is you're not single and you're not married. And what you're doing in the middle is you're taking the actions that you transform you from one person into the next.
Wow.
And in a memorial, what we're doing, you're beginning with an ending. Somebody's life has ended, right? Now, the beginning is life without that person. And then what happens in between is the transition where you're getting used to life without that person. So a funeral ceremony can be part of that ending where you're coming to accept that. But then there's a period of grieving and then life must go on. Graduation ceremonies, right? You're celebrating an ending
It's
of the schooling that you've got,
cool. Yes,
you
yes,
know, and
yes.
becoming the whoever you're going to become next. And that's what the ceremony does. It acknowledges that history that you've had and celebrates everything and gets ready to turn you in a different direction. So a lot of the time that's what celebrations do. They turn you in a different direction. That model, that whole model, that I can say that it's used around ceremonies, but it's everywhere. If you look at a lot of adventure movies, for example, you'll see that they follow the hero's journey. So Frodo gets the call, right? He
Yes.
gets the call. He decides whether he's going to depart or not. Am I going to go? Am I going to accept the challenge? And then at the end of the movie, he comes back, right? And he's new, he's different, he's a different person. And what happens in the middle? 80% of the adventure movie is that time in between, when you're not this, but you're not that. And
Oh,
what happens in the middle is what changes you from one person into the next. Does that make sense?
oh my God, does it make sense? And I've got tickly booties all over just in the idea because I've really never thought of it that way, ever. I mean,
And here we are in the time of COVID, right?
sure.
So a lot of the ways that we've done things, we're at the end. We're at the end. A lot of the ways that we've done things.
Yeah.
So you've got those huge gatherings that they're now saying can't take place. Just there are all kinds of things that we just can't do. So for us, not just in our daily lives, but in the way we celebrate, things are ending.
Mhm.
And there's something coming up. There's something coming up. There's a new beginning or a change, something that's going to be different. But we aren't there yet. We aren't there yet.
Know what that looks like, which is where that hero's journey is, that middle ground. That's
We're in
that.
that middle ground. We're in
Yeah.
that middle ground. And the thing is, the middle ground is where most people want to get out of the middle ground.
Yeah, because it's uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable. They want to go back. They want to go back where it's safe and it's known. And you can hear that right now when you're in the media, and the media for probably the past 10 days has been saying things like, when we go back to normal, when we go back to normal.
Yeah.
Guess what? We're not going back to normal. We're
Yeah.
going ahead.
Oh, normal has always been an illusion anyway, hasn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So we're going ahead into whatever is coming up for us next, but we don't know what that looks like. And the big thing for us right now is to be in this place, this liminal place where we are in the in-between time, and to do something with it.
Yeah.
So in effect, what we can do in that liminal time is we can fritter it away. We can stay on social media. We can do all that, the stuff that keeps us busy. Or what we can do is we can start relaxing into the process and start imagining how our lives might be different,
Mhm.
and start looking at new ways of doing things.
Absolutely. And we
So
can co-create what a new, not necessarily a new normal, because again, there's not really such a thing, but there's that co-creation piece where the new comfort zone, the one we've become so familiar with, this is all part of one of the latest buzzwords I've heard recently, which is all about change management, right? I've never even heard about the technology of change management until very, very recently. But in essence, that's really what this is, isn't it?
Well, and it's hilarious because years ago, when I was more in the corporate world, we used this same model. We used different terminology, but they used it in the corporate world. It was called Transitions by a guy named William Bridges, but it's all basically based on Joseph Campbell. What's interesting is that a lot of people, when they get through to the other end, when they've arrived at the new place, they will look back and they'll go, wow, I'm really grateful that happened, or wow, look at who I've become, or those kinds of things. But you don't tend to say that when you're in the middle of it.
Oh, heck no. Heck no. I mean, and I'm a testament to that. I mean, 10 years ago, as you know, Barbara, I moved here, right? This fall will be my 10th year. And who I was when I arrived on the rock and who I am today, holy baloney. Like
Don't I know it?
totally, yeah, like totally, I'm not at all. And none of us are when we go through these transition processes. But people have a real hard time, at least it's been my experience, having a really hard time accepting that middle ground. As a celebrant, how do you help them kind of be comforted in that journey? Or is that really something that they get from preparing with you what the closure and the new beginning might look like?
Well, and here's something that's really interesting. What happens a lot of the time is people think of a ceremony as an event,
Hmm.
but it's actually a process. So, for example, if I'm designing a wedding, then I'm going to work with you, and so we're going to design that wedding, that ceremony, over a period of however long it's going to take. But what that does is that gives you a greater process of experiencing, of getting married. So when you're there, you're a lot more present for it. You're enjoying it. You it becomes more of a gift to everybody that you're sharing with everybody that who's with you.
Hmm.
So the whole thing becomes much more of a process, and then the ceremony is the end of the process. So everything becomes much brighter, much deeper. It's not like, oh, let's just get this over with and we'll get the rubber stamp on it.
Yeah.
So and the thing I find in the weddings I do is that the ceremony just raises the level of celebration. The celebration starts right in the ceremony. Memorials are huge. Memorials are huge because, again, what people think is, we've lost our loved one, and we just need to do a celebration of life. And so they treat the celebration of life as an event, and then it becomes a task. It's a little bit like wedding planning. Well, got to do this. How are we going to do that? Where's the food going to come from? It becomes a lot of it is logistic. But the really good thing about the way we do things out west here, out in BC, and even with the COVID time, is that it's giving us time, and time before we get together. And so we now have that time to build in storytelling and some grieving and some memories and all of the things that we tend to leave out of the healing, ultimately the healing process, that grieving gives us. So if we have more time, and we build that farewell in a more intentional way, where we can get together and tell stories, or do those kinds of things that help us remember and release. It's just a healthier way to end a life, and it's just a deeper way, again, of doing it.
Well, and it's I think a much more, it's, I'm feeling the beauty in all of that, because as you said, there is something that we neglect when we think about grieving, right? When we
Mhm.
think about grieving, at the best of times, it's always to the negative, but in actual fact, it's really a part, I mean, there certainly is some negative to it, but there's a part of acceptance. There's a part of understanding. There's a part, that when you spend the extra time to prepare for the concept of what would you like to see the celebration of life be, you do get that real true acceptance opportunity, which if you're throwing something together without necessarily, just to get it done, get it over with, which nobody wants to do when they're grieving, right?
Exactly.
There is that other piece that can really be very beautiful.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's like you get stuck in party planning, and then you almost miss the point of why you're there. And I think one of the challenges with memorials too is, if you are being the planner and organizer, sometimes it's really hard to experience what's happening while it's happening, because it's like being the host and the guest of honor at the same time. It's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, I
So
couldn't agree with you more. And I mean, I've certainly been there many times. In my own life, I've lost many members of my family. And you're quite right about the party planning. There's a part when your body and your system just has a really hard time doing anything except for being on remote control. And to be able to pass that piece over to someone like yourself, that you can sit with that, with a celebrant, sit with you, Barbara, and say, okay, so this is what this event means to me, regardless of what the event is. And the people within the family, the people within the invitees that we want to ensure are there to be with us in the process, to be present in the moment, as opposed to it being you know, a traditional kind of a party. Many of these are life-altering events for people.
You know what I find is really huge is that um, a lot of people, when stuff like this happens, they want to show up, but they don't know how,
Oh yeah,
because our life moves so quickly and it just kind of travels on the surface. And so, you know, these really profound moments come along and
yeah,
people don't know how to enter them.
yeah,
And so I, you know, I find with weddings and memorials, one of the best things I can do is to kind of bring people into the, you know, profoundness of the moment. And that sounds so, you know, airy fairy, but
It's
it's not, it's just
not at
to
all.
remember that, you know, to be grateful for what, I mean, this we live in this amazing life, we live this, you know, it's fabulous, and yet we don't take in the awe of the moment and how lucky we are to
Yeah.
be where we are and who we are with. You know, it's that part is huge. And I find afterwards that people are usually grateful, and will come up at the end of the ceremony, at the end of a ceremony, and say, wow, you know, you really got us, you made us be present, you helped us become present, and that made a world of difference.
Nailed it. Nailed it.
Yeah.
Hey,
Huge.
listeners,
And
we're gonna
I mean,
continue.
not that I'm necessarily good at doing that myself.
No, I totally understand.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I wrote a book on that. I totally get it. But you're quite right. You know, there's something to be said for that, is to be bringing it so that people are there and they're present and they're part of the moment. I'm just going to take a quick break in conversation to identify again who we are and where we are. For listeners who just tuned in, you are listening to Act 3 Radio. We are so glad that you've tuned into CHLY 101.7. You can hear our show every Monday at 1 o'clock, and we're really, really glad that you tune in. Today in the Zoom booth with me, because we are not in the regular radio station right now, is Barbara Densmore from my living room and her living room. If you're hearing a bunch of noises in the background, things like garbage trucks, or if you're hearing dogs bark or dings on computers, just recognize that this is that transition place that we were talking about, that gray area that Barbara and I were giggling about a little bit earlier. And so I am delighted to bring you back to the conversation. Thanks, Barbara. I just, you know, I think that we as a society, you know, have currently as a way that, you know, movies tell us we're supposed to get married, you know, television programs, they tell us how we're supposed to pass away. We've seen some things that have happened over the last 10 years, much more celebrations of life. But we're also seeing, you know, young people who are getting engaged, doing more exciting things with the engagement process. I just became, as you know, a grandmother. I'm about to be a grandma again. I'm Yahoo in October. My first grandchild is turning a year old, in fact, next weekend. So what a great way to celebrate Mother's Day, as Mother's Day is just around the corner here, or is actually, by the time the show airs, will have just passed. And I'm just thinking to myself, you know, we're celebrating so many wonderful things, and what a rich time to be alive, even while we're going through a pandemic.
Well, and you know, that said, yes, that's true. And I think that what happens is that we've become a party culture.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
We've
Yes.
become a party culture. That's all we really know how to do. So everything becomes a party. And so these, you know, these major life transitions, that's the way we pass them. And now with COVID, things are changing, and you know, parties aren't going to be all they're cracked up to be. In some places they may be, but I mean, we're still looking at that 50-person limit,
Yep.
and ultimately that's just
Wherever
kind of
possible.
changing things. So, but things don't have to be parties,
Yes.
you know. But I think people don't know what else to do, because what the church gave us were very standardized impersonal rituals, and those don't work.
Yeah.
And I think people are lost. And so in many cases, what I end up doing with people that are looking to do something is we go back in and we kind of breathe life into some of the things that we used to do, and then we pull them forward. And that whole big thing, the whole big question around who are you and what matters the most is what really fuels whatever you decide to do. So like one of the most personal things I did for, it was a couple I married. And then they were pregnant, and she was just so not a baby shower person. She just did not want the games and all that kind of stuff. She wanted to do something different. She wanted to do something really intentional. So we did an adapted form of a mother blessing, where a lot of the women who came, they were to bring something for the babe, who was going to be a girl, and we locked them away in a time capsule.
Oh.
That she will be opening on her 16th birthday.
Oh my God, I love that.
And what we did was, it was phenomenal. So the mom, her sister wrote a letter about what it's like to be the oldest sister. Put it in a sealed envelope. That went into the box.
Oh.
And the mother came up with, they were like the playing cards, fastened together. One side was a picture of the women, the strong women of her lineage, and the back side had a story. So she went back 4 generations and introduced her to the women before her who were powerful, strong women.
Oh my gosh.
And so just as we went around the circle, and I mean, again, this is like what I talked about. It's the process of getting ready. So each person there went through a thoughtful process of figuring out exactly what they wanted to do, and what would go in, and then the ending was, the delivery and the storytelling around that as everything went into this time capsule. And then after that, we had the party, we had the celebration, but we did something that was very deliberate beforehand.
And incredibly impactful. Can you imagine being that 16-year-old girl on her 16th birthday?
Yeah.
Right?
I did that actually.
Open that box and see the letters. I mean, from a woman's perspective, having 4 generations of strong women. I mean, I would be, so I don't have a granddaughter, but I'd like to do something like that for my grandson. I think we're going to be making some arrangements here pretty soon. Wait till my next grandchild is born and let's go with that. But what a brilliant thought. I mean, just tell me more.
We did something similar to that as part of a baby blessing. So instead of a baptism, we wanted to do a baby blessing. And so I helped a couple in Ontario come up with that. And what they told me is their daughter is 3 now, and she brings the box down, because it's her box. So every year on her birthday, she wants to see the box.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's her future box. So she knows it's there. And in her box are promises. People have promised to do things or to teach her things. So, yeah.
What a legacy.
Isn't it amazing when you can do something like that?
Yeah. I mean, just the idea of being able to bring up a child in that kind of a loving environment, knowing that, that box is there that she can lean on and be supported for the rest of her life. And she can pass that on to her life as well, right? Whatever that looks like for her. Lots of women in my age group, in our age group, are divorcees. And a lot of people really, we get ourselves wrapped up with a divorce. I know it took me a really long time, in all honesty, to get over my divorce. It was one of those things. It was a choice that was made, that had to be made. But it took a long time for me to get over it. I noted that on your website, which, by the way, everybody grab a piece of paper and a pen, because we're going to want to make sure that Barbara is able to give you her information before we close the show. Okay, so make sure you've got a pen and paper handy. Even if you just want to ask her a few questions, and check out her website. But going back to the comment, the idea of celebrating a divorce is becoming more and more popular.
Oh my goodness, I got a request probably about 3 or 4 years ago from somebody who was writing a book on divorce parties.
Yeah.
And divorce parties. And I said, and I ended up getting quoted in the book, but I said, you know what? Like, party again, it's the party culture thing. We don't know what else to do. And there are so many things that you can do. I did an unmarriage ceremony where the couple turned up together and we unmarried them. So we did the marriage ceremony backwards.
Reverse.
Right?
Grand.
But to do that, you need to have both people.
Yes.
They both have to want to show up. And usually what happens in a divorce is that one person goes and the person and one person stays, and it's usually the person who stays who has to get used to it because they didn't know, they weren't as prepared for the ending. So in some cases, a divorce ceremony, it can really signify either the start of your process or the end of your process. Like, as I said, the 3 steps. So there are things that you can do. And in many cases, it's a way to say thank you for all the people who've been there for you, to appreciate all the people who listen to you. Because I know enough people listen to me.
Well, you know what? At the end of the day, I mean, this marriage for me was only 10 years. It was not a long marriage. I was married before that. It's my second marriage. I actually like to say I was serial married for 24 years, but 2 different people, right? And in my second marriage, I mean, I really, really struggled with the ending of that. I ended it for my own reasons, but which I'm not going to get into here. But the idea behind the moving forward piece, right? People sometimes get stuck in their own way, and giving, an alternative, there is a way that we can bless the situation. And maybe, I mean, grief is grief, no matter how you look at it, right? Regardless of whether you lose a job, you lose a husband, you lose a lover, you lose a partner, you lose a friend, you lose whatever the loss may be, mother, whoever, right? When we love passes away, things, contractual breakages, like divorces, is also a death. It's the hope that you had dreamed about when you got married in the first place. That changed the day that you decided that was over. So could we rewrite a new narrative, right, to help move forward after a tragedy?
Well, exactly. Yeah, exactly. It is about rewriting, and and good for you for saying that, you recognize at times and places that you got stuck. Because a lot of people are going around that hamster wheel of doing things over and over and over again, and they don't know how to get off it.
Yeah, it takes time.
And so sometimes that's where ritual comes in. And the word ritual scares people off because they think of, I don't know, dancing in the forest with wood chips in your hair or something like that,
I think that's very esoterical, very.
And they think of ritual or the age-old church connotation. Sure. It's not. Ritual is something that you're doing that's meaningful. It's meaningful and it's present, and it helps you break that cycle and moves you into someplace different. Mm-hmm. And so those can be sustenance rituals that you're doing just to calm yourself, or they can be the actual transitional ritual where one of the things that you do is you go out and bury your wedding ring or something like that.
Mm-hmm. And it can be something very simple, but having the ability to work with somebody along the process kind of brings you to a place where you can put the meaning and the impact there. But I like what you said a bit earlier too, because it's really important that we recognize all of the many people that have been the fabric of our life during the time we were with that person, or during the time we were going through high school, or during the time we were getting ready for the new marriage and the new relationship and the new life, or whatever that looks like to people, regardless of what the circumstances are. It's that hero's journey once again, right, of opening, middle ground, and closure. Do you find that the relationships that you create as a celebrant, do you feel that many of them last longer because you've spent more time in that intimate place of unpacking who people are? Or is there really, life is life, right? So what are your thoughts on that?
I think they last longer, not because of that, but because of who they are.
Yeah.
Who they are and the level of commitment that they've often made to each other, and the way that they the way that they live.
And do you
You know,
find
I look
that
at,
women come together with celebrants and the equal combining of those conversations and the planning, or is it usually, is it one of the two of the couple that tends to be more involved, or is it just different all the time? I mean, people are different, right?
no. Well, in my case, if it's a wedding, I'm working with both of them.
Good.
And I'm working with them on a regular basis. We're talking. By the time we get to the ceremony, they know me and I know them really well, and it makes it very, very different. Because one of the things that can happen in a wedding ceremony is it's just so easy, with all the stress of the day and with all the stress of the day and everything going on, and then all of a sudden, you know, you've walked up the aisle and then you turn around and you're standing there looking at anybody who ever meant anything to you. And you know, a lot of couples I'm marrying for the second time, they all tell me that they just, you know, they just went tilt, right? They were emotionally overwhelmed. They had an out of body experience. They don't remember a thing,
Yeah.
and the day was a blur. So, you know, hopefully through what I'm doing with them and what I'm doing in the ceremony, they're able to be present and to experience it, and you know, when the funny parts come, to remember to laugh.
Well, you always have to remember to laugh. It's always the best way to go. It lightens, and the levity, there's nothing better than levity when we're dealing with, you know, really important things. And I just, you know, it's such an honor to know that there's someone like yourself, Barbara, that can go out there and really, you know, bring people together in a place that this becomes so memorable for them. They've co-created again that memory. I mean, just, you're right. You know, when you think about weddings, there's all the bride magazines and all the, you know, shops you go to and the cakes you taste and the, you know, and same for funerals. In all fairness, it's a slightly different audience, but nonetheless, it's the same. You're checking things out. You're trying to party plan. And that takes away from the impact of the reason why people are coming together in the first place.
So I have a group here in town. They call themselves the Love Club.
The Love Club.
Yeah, I've married them. And so we get together a couple of times a year. And so one of them just had a housewarming at the 1st of March. And so I got invited to go down to the housewarming party. And so everybody down there is all saying, you know, how do you know them? How do you know them? And so, you know, I got into a conversation with some people and I said, yeah, I married them. And there were about a group of about 3 or 4 women standing there, and they said, oh, that wedding ceremony, I love the tea part. Oh, I love this, I love that. And I married them in 2013.
Wow. Isn't that great?
And so, you know, it's funny because, I mean, that's the stuff that touches your heart is what you remember, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's going, hey, you know, those napkin rings were the most beautiful ones I ever saw, you know?
Right. Or I remember, didn't you have purple instead of lavender, or not lavender, I'm sorry, because purple and lavender are kind of the same, but you know what I'm saying, like these, they're thinking the colors. I actually just walked past my cabinetry the other day, and you know, my oldest friend and we've been friends for almost 40 years now, a long time. And I just walked past her wedding picture, which I also wore her wedding dress on my first wedding. And I had forgotten about the dresses and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
All I remembered was, you know, being together and, you know, and just watching the joy that she had on this, you know, incredible day. And they're still married and doing strong and have been married for 25, 30 years almost now. And it's brilliant. But people don't remember they remember how they feel. That's what people remember.
Exactly. And that's what's so interesting about this COVID stuff. And what we were talking about with Joseph Campbell is, you know, maybe what we're doing is moving into a new world where we realize what matters the most. And in that new world, what matters the most is the people that we love and being with those people, because that's what we remember. You know, we don't remember the table centerpieces and the bows on chairs and all that kind of stuff. What we remember is the stuff that touches our hearts, and that in our separation from each other, we're realizing is what we really are longing for. Yeah, it's what we want the most. I mean, we're talking about Dr. Bonnie Henry. Everybody is nowadays, and what did she say this week? She said, you know, just want to go out and hug people. You want to hug the people that you love. And so I think we're learning that the stuff doesn't matter as much.
No, it really doesn't. And I mean, the sentiment towards that, I think, is that when we look at, I get very frustrated because it's only really been a couple of months, really. And for years and years before, people have gone through tremendous strife, and we're fussing over a couple of months where people have gone through it for many, many years. And I think we just respectfully, lovingly, I think we just need to get a grip and remember what's important. We don't have that much longer in our show, unfortunately. It's ending in just another 5 minutes or so. It's a short, and ladies and gentlemen, my apologies that today's show is a little bit shorter than usual. Having said that, I hope that you are enjoying every moment of it, because we sure love bringing it to you. You've been listening to Act 3 on CHLY 101.7. And Barbara, just a little bit ago, I'd asked to make sure that we got your information out there. So could you please share your telephone number, or how someone will reach you through your webpage? How do people find you, Barbara?
Best way to reach me is through my website. Well, check out my website. It's barbaradensmore.ca, and on that website, I've got my my email address and contact information.
Perfect. And if anybody needs to find more information about it, you can find Act 3 Media on our Facebook page, and I will make sure that there's a link on there so that you can click onto it directly and get the information. And coming soon, although I've had some technical difficulties, we have www.act3mediaproductions.com, and so by all means, you'll find her information on there as well. Barbara, as we are closing out the show, as I said, we've only got about 5 minutes left here, and I just really would like to see, what's your biggest takeaway from all of this? A, as being a celebrant, B, as, during this time, like if you could imbibe the best, your thoughts on, teaching the life lesson that goes with this, what might that look like? I know I throw people under the bus all the time. I don't mean to do it, I really don't, but it's such an important thought. Like, what's your takeaway in doing what you love like this?
I think it's all about treasuring the moment.
Yeah.
I think we're all in such a rush nowadays. We're all so busy. I think we're overwhelmed and we don't know that we are. We're overloaded and we don't know we are.
Yeah.
And so I look at where we're going right now, and I mean, my goodness, the joy of baking bread.
Do you know more people are baking bread now than they have in like 40 years? Yeah. Like, it's incredible. I mean, I've gotten fatter, but it's not from baking my own bread. It's actually, I'm finding I'm working more than I even was before, in different ways, certainly. But yeah, to be in the moment, what is that? How wonderful is that?
And back, I believe it's called fattening the curve.
Fattening the curve.
Not right. Flattening the curve.
That's quite right.
I think we're
poundage. I have to tell you, this is not making me a happy camper. I just am not a happy camper in this moment, but all is well.
I think the universe is giving us a chance to slow down and appreciate what we've got, to realize that we live a pretty marvelous life, and that we really are pretty fortunate, to remind us of the biggest gifts that we do have, our health, our family, our friends, the chance to go outdoors, dogs, whatever else. I think we're being given the chance to spend time looking at what really matters and appreciating what really matters by having so much of the extraneous stuff kind of cleared away and making space for all of that. It's our choice whether we, whether we go there or not. And that's the wonderful thing about life, is that we have all those choices. But I think we really are blessed. And if you look at a day like today that's sunny, and the fact that you got 2 good feet to go out and enjoy it, you're in way better shape than a lot of the world.
Well, and there's no doubt about that. I mean, really, even on Vancouver Island, we have been blessed. At the time of recording, we were sitting at somewhere around 127, 130 cases on Vancouver Island for the entirety of the island. What we know for sure is that, we're not done yet. We have to always be mindful of the people that we love, you know, wanting, I mean, Barbara, hugging you right now would be one of my favorite things to do, right? As well as so many of the other people in our community. We all, you know, especially when we feel that we have connected in a way that is so positive, right? And what you bring to this conversation has been, you know, reaching through the radio in a way that is like a virtual hug. It's like, let's celebrate, you know, these new beginnings. Let's celebrate, you know, that hero, you know, ending, closing, beginning, middle ground, and let's not get all caught up in the gray.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for listening and tuning in. Barbara Densmore, the first day with my new mouth. I'm still trying to figure out how to use it. Has been our guest today on Act 3 on CHLY 101.7. Hey, listen, everybody, tune in next week. We'll have so much more to share with you. We're looking forward to having some more conversations with members of our community. Don't forget to check out Barbara Densmore's website. As I said, you can connect with us on Facebook through At3 Media Productions, and we will talk with you again. Thanks, Barbara. Anything left to say, my dear?
No, big virtual hug.
Big virtual hug to you too, darling. Thanks again for tuning in, everybody. Bye for now. We'll talk to you next week.